Hi students, today I am going to teach you All for Love, and this is the lecture which is to be continued with my last lecture where I had taught a lot of details about All for Love. Today I am going to take the section and to make you understand what is Pseudo-Classicism. So my dear students, All for Love, as we have already discussed in the last lecture, what is this? It is a Pseudo-Classicism. And this play leads towards a lot of strictness. Strictness of what? Strictness of form. And that form which actually needs a lot of retention, and that too of the three unities. The unity of time, the unity of place, the unity of action. And yes, this pseudo-classical school at least is a part of the pseudo-classical school which held most strictly to the rules of priority and of good conduct, which is actually very much needed for any drama. For example, students, if I talk about, a lot of more pseudo-classicists, we will find that many great authors have written such type of dramas, and this story, the Antony and Cleopatra, which is to be found in this great drama, All for Love, is actually a play which is traceable to the influence of those pseudo-classical ideals. Now, students, I will also discuss with you Dryden's achievement. And this achievement, which is considered to be very fine. And this is also true that All for Love is Dryden's finest achievement which he has written, which he has penned down. And yes, as a dramatist, as a great satirist, as a great writer, his aim has always been to fuse, to blend more formal elements of the pseudo-classic theory with the richer proportions of the Elizabethan theatre, which you might also be knowing. We also know about John Dryden, about his multiplicity of scenes, about the force of Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, the feelings of passion, the feelings of compassion, and yes, it is undeniable. What is undeniable? It is undeniable that Dryden has lost all that high ardor and passionate romance which actually inculcates, which actually breathes from each and every line which he has penned down, which is so apparent, which is so clear, which is so transitional in this tragedy. Yes, dear students, whenever you study, you should also note this down, that you should understand whatever I am going to teach you, because then only you will be able to write that answer in the great examinations, in the topmost examinations of India. So to continue with the students, All for Love, written by Dryden, has its own style. And that style, that drama, is actually worthy of being considered a great play dealing with the story of Antony and Cleopatra. Now we will also discuss no poetic justice. There are many questions you will find. No poetic justice. These are the very relevant points, students, which has to be understood. No poetic justice, no tragic relief. So to understand this point, I will try to make you consider that the essence of this play, जिसको हम हिंदी में कहते हैं निचोड़, इस प्ले का एसेंस क्या है? इट इज द ऑपरेशन ऑन वर्च्यू. देखिए मैं एक लाइन में लिख देता हूं इसको, ऑपरेशन ऑन वर्च्यू. The essence of the play is the operation on virtue, and you can even say on virtue and innocence, by the love between two crazy lovers founded on vice. ये चीज बिल्कुल मत भूलिएगा स्टूडेंट्स, कहां पे उसको रखा गया है? Founded on vice. And yes, Octavia, Octavia, who was the neglected and the abandoned wife of Antony, stands for virtue. Her two little children who have been forcibly orphaned, what they symbolize? They symbolize innocence and the mutual love of Antony and Cleopatra. जितना भी वो डीप हो, जितना भी वो sublime हो, however deep it may be, however sublime it may be, is certainly founded upon what? Founded upon nothing else but vice. Fine, students. So, the presence of Octavia, the presence of the innocent children, and her heart-piercing, moving utterances basically impair the poetic justice and damage the tragic relief. Dryden has himself pointed out this error that कहीं पे उसने लिखा है बच्चों, कोट एंड कोट में मुझे याद है उसने लिखा है, I had enough considered that the compassion Octavia moved to herself and children was actually destructive to that which I reserved for Antony and Cleopatra, whose mutual love being founded on vice must lessen the favor of the audience to them when virtue, innocence were oppressed by it. Such beautiful lines Dryden himself has written about this play. And in this All for Love, Antony of Dryden is basically a pygmy. When this character is compared to Shakespeare's stalwart hero, who is actually a perfect embodiment of sublime tragic glamour and romantic splendor, who is suspicious, who is jealous, and who is even devoid of the logical sequence. He is somewhat cynical also sometimes. Fine. Now, after discussing this, the pseudo-classicism, the poetic justice, no tragic relief, and all these things which are very important for your examination's point of view, we will also discuss much more things which I would like to share with you here, that this play has lack of emotion and passion. Why, students? क्या है कि देखिए, Dryden's All for Love basically ये वो play है which fails to stand neck to neck, soldier to soldier with Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. इसको अगर हिंदी में मैं समझाने की कोशिश करूं तो जो ड्राइडन की ऑल फॉर लव है, ये शेक्सपियर की जो एंटनी क्लियोपैट्रा है उसके पास नहीं खड़े हो पाते. मतलब इट कैन नॉट बी कंपेयर्ड पैरेलल की शेक्सपियर की एंटनी क्लियोपैट्रा यहां पे है तो यहां पे हम ऑल फॉर लव कर दें. नो, द वर्स्ट डिफेक्ट इन ऑल फॉर लव is actually the complete absence of the emotional appeal and lack of adequate treatment of the passionate scenes, which was very much there in Shakespeare. That is why Shakespeare is Shakespeare. And Dryden, in writing this play after Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, forgot, or you can also say intentionally ignored. ऐसा भी हो सकता है, या तो वो भूल गया या तो intentionally उसने इग्नोर कर दिया. क्या that a tragedy can never be limited to an intellectual plane. कि ट्रेजेडी को कभी भी हम लिमिट नहीं कर सकते केवल एक इंटेलेक्चुअल प्लेन पे. एंड दैट पैशन इज द वेरी लाइफ फोर्स एंड इट्स इनर सोल, इट्स इनर मोस्ट बीइंग. अगर पैशन नहीं है तो सब कुछ चला जाएगा. So this was basically, you can say, the defect, the lack of emotion, that if compared to Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. Fine. Now, one more point has to be discussed, and that is basically, you can say, John Dryden's use of history. Use of history. Dear students, जिस एग्जाम को आप लोग प्रिपेयर करने चाह रहे हैं उसमें अगर ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं होगा कि अगर आपको ये पता चल जाए कि ड्राइडन ने हिस्ट्री को कैसे इस्तेमाल किया है, योर आंसर विल बिकम मच मोर रिचर एंड यू आर फोर्स्ड टू गेट मच मोर मार्क्स फ्रॉम द पेन ऑफ द एग्जामिनर। अगर हम जनरल सेंस की बात करें तो ड्राइडन इस बात को एक्सेप्ट करता है दैट he accepts the fate of history, or we can say the facts of history. Facts of history. इतिहास जो हो गया वो सच है, जो निकल चुका है. And in the play there are retrospective allusions to Cleopatra's relation with Caesar before she fell in love with Antony. And yes, the battle of Actium and the flight of Cleopatra, the desertion of her fleet, and so on and so many things. But the pseudo-classical demands of the three unities, time, place, and action, and Dryden's heroic preoccupations actually gives the way to curious anomalies. And the tyrannical unity of time has forced Ventidius, returning from his glorious adventure against the Parthians in 39 BC, to appear immediately after the Battle of Actium, which took place in 31 BC. So these are the things which, if you don't know in detail, not required. But if something is known, it would actually place you at a better position while the marks is concerned. So, in the last, summing up the entire things, I still remember one very important point to be discussed about this play is, which you can also note it down, title and the subtitle. Title and the subtitle. Fine. As we all know that the play has been entitled by Dryden, and All for Love, and its subtitle. What is the subtitle? You must all be knowing. The World Well Lost. The World Well Lost. The subtitle was suggested to Dryden by Lady Castlemaine. मेरे ख्याल से आपको शायद ये नहीं पता होगा that this subtitle was suggested by Dryden to Dryden by some lady Castlemaine, who had always patronized, have a patronizing attitude towards Dryden. And according to this lady, the title All for Love, especially for the play in which love is exhibited, is based upon vices, and which lend to pollute its very sanctity. Fine. So there are undoubtedly touching scenes, compassionate scenes, evoking scenes, and Octavia's love for Antony is far more, sanctified than that of Cleopatra for him. We had discussed in the earlier lecture also. And when she has been turned out again by him and her love is being killed, she says that she will still serve him by transferring her love, but to his own children, who now to her are the only memorial of his love. केवल वही उनके पास बचे हैं, अदरवाइज प्यार का कोई और सबूत नहीं है. तो उसने कहा कि but to his own children. And the subtitle which you have just written here, students, can actually be justified only if we mean the term world, the world well lost. if we only mean the term world as the material glories which Antony lost for Cleopatra and not the innocent wife and children. But as a matter of fact, both the main as well as the subtitle are inapt. All for love या the world well lost. बहुत apt नहीं है. Fine. So in these lectures, students, in the last, I would just suggest you that I have taken almost all the important variants through which the questions can be asked and you can solve them beautifully, technically, narratively, having all these descriptions in your mind. But yes, read the story very well. And that is your part of, it is your call, students, that the storyline, you remember it, you study it, and these lectures are not stories, but are the details, descriptions that how the examination questions can be answered by taking the entire Dryden with its all for love from all the directions. Thank you, students.